Braelon Allen, a 4th-round selection of the Jets, taken with the 134th overall pick, had 20 100-yard rushing games at Wisconsin. Carr, college scout Drew Morris, and senior regional scout Jonathan Stiegel broke down the youngest player in the NFL draft, the 20-year-old Allen, who's a monster at 6'1", 245 pounds.
Yeah, so Braelon Allen in the 3-man look that we normally do with some of the top schools. Drew Morris was the primary for that area, followed by Jonathan Stiegel as a second look. And I was actually the 3rd look. I visited Wisconsin during the fall.
So tell us about your visit, John.
It was a great visit. And Wisconsin's always a great visit. They're always going to have tough-minded young men that play there, the type of football they play. Obviously, being able to be tough and play in that kind of weather that they play in late in the season. The style of play, downhill, physical, Big Ten type back. And he checked all the boxes from sitting down with the coaches there as far as his character, his love for the game, his competitiveness. And, when you see him in person, when you first go there, you think, well, this guy's going to be 6'2", 235. Is he going to be a little chubby, And when you saw this kid in person, no, he looked like a grown man. You could see the work he's put in the weight room. And for that size, for him to run with such good balance and body control, and he has such quick feet. And, he's a finisher. He's a positive yard type runner. And he's going to get you those tough yards and short yardage goal line. And I think he has the play speed for, I call those explosive plus 20 type runs. He's not going to be that home run hitter, but he'll get you those plus 20 runs, and he showed that. And you look at his 2022 tape where he played in a more conventional pro-style offense where there were more downhill, one cut. You saw a lot of the traits that got not only myself excited, but the scouts that visited the school along with our coaches as well.
Oh gosh, as a 17-year-old freshman, maybe even a little before that, because I'm tied in a little bit with some of the high school coaches around here, and kind of the guys from a local. He's actually just right down the street from me in Fond du Lac, where he grew up. And then the first time you go out to practice and you see this guy and how big he is, and then he's just continued to get bigger over the last 3 years. I mean, he's built like a Mack truck. I might be dating myself a little bit, but he looks like he should be on the cover of the old video game NFL Blitz.
I mean, my first interaction was, seeing him live. I'm like, you could see the video that he had size, but when you walk up on him at practice, you're kind of amazed of how big and how well built he is, through his body. He's got freakish traits, and I think he's shown that. This season, per se, I think the switch of offense from what was viewed in the past, I don't think he really showed everything that's in his body. I thought he did the year before. It was in a different offense. They've done a really good job at Wisconsin, of filling that stable of running backs. And they've had production at Wisconsin. They've had production in the league. I think if he would have stayed in that same inside zone, the downhill scheme, or outside zone more, I think it would have been, he would have had more stats. And I think that's why he was overlooked a little bit. I think we got a really good value and a really good player.
I think first off, like watching him as a 17-year-old rushing for almost 1,300 yards, I believe, in the Big Ten is absolutely wild. And in terms of his frame, like he came in as a big kid and he just continued to get bigger in their weight room. You talk to those guys over at Wisconsin and they never limited it in terms of that because he really has the frame to carry it. Like when I was there, he was about 245 pounds in August. He was about 243, I believe, when I came back in October, and he carries that weight extremely well. In terms of him as a player, like obviously the size is going to stand out, the strength, the power, the ability to break contact. I think that's something that he was able to do from freshman on. Outside of that, when you look at it, he's improved a ton in the passing game, both as a pass protector and as a receiver catching the ball out of the backfield. I think that's one of the most evident things that you see from watching him as a freshman to watching him now is how much better he's got in terms of pass protection. And as you mentioned, being the youngest guy in the draft, like there's still a lot of growth potential in this guy in terms of his skill set. I mean, he's 20 years old. Most of the guys you're seeing get drafted are 22, 23 years old. Like there's still a lot left on the bone for a guy who is an extremely productive college player. I mean, he was 5 semesters at Wisconsin. That's it. A lot of these guys are 10 plus semesters now with everything going on. So I think there's a ton of upside and still room for him to grow and even get better from what you saw at Wisconsin.
What did you find out about him from the people on campus? Because that's a big part of your job as well, is not just to evaluate the tape, not just to watch these guys at practice or games, but actually do the research on the ground to find out who they are and how they're going to fit in your program.
Yeah, I mean, he was raised in a good home. He's a Wisconsin kid. You know, there was no red flags off the field or any issues or concerns that way. You know, he was a guy like, you know, I just said before, you know, the character stuff all checked out. That was not going to be an issue. Everybody likes the person, you know, in the building and out of the building. And then, you know, through the process of combine and everything, you know, he's a good person, responsible, accountable, all that stuff. You know, it was just, you know, like I said, the production this year, playing in that passing offense, and not seeing, you know, all of his skill set being used.
Do you think about December and January when you're looking at a guy like this? Because you guys have a star running back in the backfield in Breece Hall, but obviously you can't give him every rep out of the backfield. So how much does that factor into the equation, where you guys are, the division, that kind of stuff?
This is especially playing in this division, playing in Buffalo, you know, New England, especially later in the year when it's cold and you need to run the ball. I mean, obviously we saw that last year with Breece, you know, having a big back that can handle the load and adding another one to the stable, especially for a long season, is a really good problem to have.
I like to see the Braelon Allen where it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, and you see him get that extra yard and be able to run through contact. I think that's a skill set that really projects well in terms of the NFL and what he's going to be able to do there. The guy's obviously scored a lot of touchdowns throughout the years, but I think the most fun is watching him run through guys. And the other stuff too, I think when you go through his tape, is that he's got really impressive feet, like his foot agility, working through the bags. I mean, just watching him float through the agility bags at Pro Day is one of the more impressive things I've seen for, I believe he was 236 pounds at Pro Day for a guy that size, being able to move through the bags and change direction the way he is. I think that's probably one of the most underrated parts of his game, is how good his feet truly are at that size. But he's also done a lot of things like outside of that, you know, obviously you said the weight room, the size, the ability, the highlights on the field, like those are extremely impressive things. But I think the growth of him, you know, talking to those coaches that are in there from 17 years old to 19 years old last year has really been in terms of like his diligence, his classroom study, his ability to watch tape. Those type of things have really come a long way. Those aren't necessarily things that you learn in high school. Those are things that you have to learn, have to dedicate yourself to at the college level. And he's done a really good job of getting himself prepared from a mental standpoint and being mentally ready for the NFL as much as he has physically.